The death of former U.S. President Jimmy Carter continues to dominate headlines here. The White House has announced a state funeral will be held for the former president on January 9th. The date has also been declared a national day of mourning. The New York Stock Exchange will be closed for trading on that day. U.S. flags at home and at embassies around the world ordered to fly at half-mast for 30 days. Carter, the 39th president of the United States, died at his home in Plains, Georgia, Sunday. He was 100. Now, to help us discuss the pivotal role President Carter played in the relationship with China is Einar Tangen, Senior Fellow at the Taihe Institute and Chairman, Asian Narratives. Welcome back to the show, Einar. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
So Jimmy Carter leaves several legacies behind: his humanitarian and civil rights efforts, brokering peace in the Middle East through those Camp David Accords. But that wasn't his only foreign policy accomplishment. He also helped normalize relations with China, which had been strained for many years before that. How did he accomplish that, and how pivotal was it?
Well, first, let me say that this is a man whose Christian actions mirrored Confucian values, and this is as important as anything in terms of creating a relationship, the respect, being humble, virtuous, and leading by example. Through a series of secret negotiations, he determined that it was very important for the United States and for China to come together. And as a result, it was decided that there is only one China, and that the Taiwan would not be recognized as a state. And this was extremely important. I mean, there were many of those who were against this. They didn't see this as a priority, but he did. And in later years, as he confirmed, this is one of the proudest things that he did. He mentioned it many times.
Yeah, he was definitely a man who believed even if you didn't see eye to eye, you needed to respect and find a way to get along with other parties, other people. So that diplomacy in 1979 actually led to deep changes in U.S.-China relations and led to the visit of China's paramount leader Deng Xiaoping to the White House soon after that. Do you think that a forward-thinking Carter trying to broker peace has helped foster the ties and dialogue the U.S. and China then enjoy today?
Well, Karina, it was the start. Right now, it's a little bit different. At that time, China was not in any way, shape, or form a competitor to the United States. It was a country that was emerging after a long period of very, very difficult economic times of complete independence from the colonial powers that had dominated it. But today, China has risen to be the #2 economic power in the world. And for some in Washington, it is seen as a competitor, as a threat to American domination, this theory that the U.S. must dominate in order for there to be world peace. Although, quite frankly, world peace has not come at the behest of the United States so far.
Yeah, there was this time, that Carter perhaps thought, and people around him, that China may become a little bit more liberal, but they didn't go in that direction, and we are where we are now. But how have China and the U.S. benefited when it comes to the flow of things like commerce, trade, education, and cultural exchanges as a result of him stepping forward at that point?
Well, we have to keep in mind that 2/3 of all of the profits that were created, especially from 2001 on with China coming into the WTO, went to developed countries, and the lion's share of that went to the United States. The issue was that once one company goes to China or to anywhere else where they have an economic advantage, their competitors follow. And this is what happened in the United States. But at the same time, the whole world was benefiting. If you start looking at growth patterns since that time, you'll see a marked increase in the economies in South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, even in Central Asia, as they have been able to share in the economic development, not only of China, but of the entire world.
And there was that point when Deng Xiaoping came to the White House. He said to Carter, you know, can we send 5,000 of our Chinese students to the U.S. to come and study? And Carter said, you can send 100,000. So he was very welcoming. He was very open in that respect. And Carter visited China many times. He was very outspoken about it from his time in, you know, the Naval Academy. How crucial do you think his insight has been to subsequent presidencies in the U.S.? Because in 2019, then President Trump consulted Carter amid trade war negotiations.
Well, I wish they had consulted him more often. He was a man who stood for peace. He's one of the people who truly deserved his Nobel Prize for, pushing this idea that we have to talk to each other rather than fight. He was the first person to, his first proclamation was to absolve all the people who did not serve in the Vietnam War of any kind of criminal responsibility. Although presidents actually, valued his opinion, I don't know that they listened to it closely enough. I mean, at one point, he was asking Obama to recognize the Palestinian state, but it didn't happen. He has been consistently pushing this idea that peace has to be promoted, and he lived it. He was out there with his Carter Foundation, making sure that these elections in various countries were as fair as they could be. So he did everything possible to make things happen. I don't know that we have the same line today.
Yeah, and he was always very honest about what he did. Compared to other U.S. leaders, Einar, how will he be remembered by China? We heard from the current leadership, and Jiang Zemin called him an old friend of the Chinese people.
Well, as I said at the very beginning, for his actions mirror Confucian values. And this is something very, very important. His humility, humbleness, his willingness to listen, to understand that there are different points of view and accept them. This was absolutely crucial to defining him as a man, as somebody who, lived out his values. The fact that he would work on a construction site, putting together a home for the people who had less than he did, that he would visit foreign countries constantly in order to promote peace. These are the types of things that actually last longer than any kind of accomplishment. You can talk about creating the Department of Education and the Department of Energy, of promoting these things. But in the end, all systems come down to people. And he has been an extraordinary one that has been lionized more outside of his office than during it.
Very well said. We will leave it there. Thank you so much, Einar Tangen, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Karina.